Get top-tier tickets from Wild Hockey to huge concerts like Santana, the Doobie Brothers, Chris Stapleton, and more. Don't wait. Enter now, KFAN.com, keyword contests, KFAN.com, keyword contests.
Got some leftover texts to get to in the 4 o'clock hour, and we're going to get back to the sleep shaming controversy that we introduced in the first hour of the show. In fact, we've got some texts on that, and apparently sleep shaming comes in all forms. You can get mocked if you try to go home early to go to sleep. You can get mocked if you're up till 2:30 in the morning and never catch up on your sleep. There's seems to be one of those deals where no matter which way you go, you're going to get. And I guess if you take a nap, you're going to get ripped. I wish I were a better napper than I am. You are a good napper because you've napped in the middle of the day. I've looked for you during the middle of the day, and you're in the darkness in what used to be the performance room, for God's sake. Yeah.
No, I need to find a new spot. Well, sometimes if I'm working 9 to noon and I work your show, I got 3 hours to kill.
You got time. You could go hit a bucket of balls in between.
Sometimes I do that, too.
Yeah, I do that as well. So I'll get to a couple of those in a minute. Lots of reaction to our conversation with Kevin Seifert. Don't forget, Louie will join at 4:30, and Fox 9 intrepid reporter Paul Bloom is scheduled for 5:30 tonight. This is from, I think it's Ed in St. Paul. Yes. Dan, with all the salary cap talk and struggles the Vikings are presently facing just to get under the bare minimum, let alone have any room to play with, even while having a low-cost quarterback contract, really sheds a light on teams like the Chiefs, who have for years now paid big money to a quarterback in Mahomes and still found a way to capitalize and win. Shows the emphasis drafting responsibly and using the margins to build around that franchise guy. Imagine the cost cutting if JJ were making even $30 to $40 million annually. Some real hard decisions. It's a great point, and it's a further indictment on the recently departed general manager. The moral of the story here or any place is that you cannot keep buying your way out of bad drafts. And I'm not here to tell you that there isn't a place for spending. I've certainly been asking the Twins to do exactly that for a long time. But especially with the way an NFL roster is set up, you can't keep cheating the system by saying, it doesn't matter how poorly we'll draft. We'll pay our way out of that issue. You might be able to get away with it for a year at a time, but it's going to catch up with you. And there are so many positions on a football team that there's a reason it's the lifeblood of any good team, especially teams that are spending a lot of money at the quarterback position. And unfortunately, the alleged advantage we've had of not having to spend lately a lot of money at the quarterback position has not paid off in any meaningful or suitable way. This is from 952 guy. The Vikings' interest in Geno Smith is honestly insulting. The guy the Seahawks ditched to upgrade to Sam Darnold, who then won them a championship, brutal. He'll be a constant reminder of the ineptitude of the organization. I don't disagree with that. Now you could make the same argument. Well, Kyler Murray, Arizona can't get away from him quick enough now. What does that tell you? But I know it's unfair to put all of Geno's struggles on playing for a bad team last year, but it's a great point. Seattle had him, and they made a coaching change, but they had him, and they made the decision to say, nice, creditable, but not enough. Now, you could say, well, the Vikings are in a different position because deep down they still want McCarthy. They hope that McCarthy can be the guy. But I've said neither. I'm not that high on Murray or Geno. I guess if you forced me, I might say, well, if those are the only two options, and I don't like that, either one, I probably would lean Murray of the two, but neither one of them excites me all that much. I've already laid out my position about the quarterback position. I don't want to go too far down that road once again. All right, let me get to a couple of other texts. These are related. Oh, see, the system sometimes gets overloaded, the Bradshaw and Brian KFAN text line. So, like right now, for example, it's not allowing me to go back any earlier than 3:54. And what is it now, 4:11? Now, the mistake I made is that I didn't favorite a couple of those earlier. If I'd have done that, they'd have been at the top of the list. So I can't get back to the sleep shaming text, unfortunately, unless there's a something I'm not doing right in here. Really, do you have some kind of a trick? Because it just won't allow me. What happens is the little pinwheel just keeps kind of going round and around when I get to that time for whatever reason. Like it's almost an overloaded system. So I don't know. While I'm trying to figure that out, as I understand it, the trade deadline in the NHL is Thursday. I think is it 2:00 Central? It's early afternoon, I think, on Thursday. Or is it Friday? You double check the date.
I've got Friday at 2 Central.
Friday, I'm sorry. Yeah, it is Friday in the case of the NHL trade deadline. So will Brett Blakemore be mildly disappointed or devastated if Bill Guerin does not find a way to make what would be classified by most hockey purists as a significant move?
I wouldn't be disappointed at all because it's hard to get all mad and get pitchforks and torches when you just don't know what is being put out there and what is available and what's not. Or, for instance, I think a dream move that I've seen people speculate online that he potentially won out. He got booed in his home arena the other night was Austin Matthews. What a move. That's a fourth superstar on this team. That would be the biggest splash of all time. That's probably, for all I know, they could say, well, we're not going to move until the summer. And you just don't know, or whatever.
All the variables you're saying.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. So it's hard to really get bummed when you just don't know. I think my expectations are lower now that I think they may go get Trocheck, who's been rumored and for a long time, which is solid player. He wins faceoffs, kills penalties.
You take it.
It's fine. I'm definitely not disappointed.
Isn't he very good on faceoffs? Isn't that still one of our maybe biggest remaining issues left?
Yeah, X basically our only faceoff guy at this point, so to have another one. The other guys are okay, but it's not a strength of the Wild for sure. So he would help, but I don't know. I'm not going to be pitchforks, torches, get him out of town. None of that's going to happen.
Let me ask, regarding the sleep shaming issue, let me ask a question I kind of began to explore in the first hour. For those of you who have a watch or a ring or maybe an implant, I don't know, maybe there's implants on this, that helps you via an app measure how far you've walked in a day, how many steps you've taken in a day, how much tension you've been enduring over the course of a day, how overloaded your system is on a given day, how quality-ish your sleep is, presumably in a given night. Do you find those tools useful? Because I think in the beginning they can be. But do they reach a point where they end up consuming you? To the point where you don't even think you're in control because you got to get that fix of what that device tells you about, again, your tension level on a given day. Because the one I'm not even wearing one these days, but the one, I think it was a Garmin, it was the most recent one I've had. And it would say all of a sudden, like at, 7 o'clock at night, it would say, you've had a stressful day. Now it's time for you to kind of kick back, whatever. And I'm thinking to myself, there was ups and downs. I didn't think it was particularly stressful on this particular day. And then, as I said, you start second guessing it. On sleep, I started taking the damn thing off because I didn't always think it evaluated accurately for me. But then I felt like my watch was shaming me if it said, sleep description, poor, not nearly enough REM, and a couple of other comments, whatever. You go, God, I don't know if I need that. I get it's supposed to be a tool, but I'm wondering how often for people it ends up being, it ends up controlling you rather than you controlling these cute little toys that we have. Bradshaw and Bryant KFAN text line is open at 64686. Let's get a break in now, and then we'll come back. We have time maybe for a couple of texts, and then we'll prepare for Louie at the bottom of the hour. Find out what he's hearing on the trade rumor front, because Louie's got all kinds of sources all over the National Hockey League. Stay tuned.
The wait is over. The 2026 MSHSL State Boys Hockey Tournament has arrived, and we're bringing you every heart-pounding moment. Coverage starts this Thursday on the Fan and KFAN Plus, presented by James Hardy, the #1 brand of siding in North America.
Larry Mondello guy writes, when your watch told you that you'd had a stressful day, even when you didn't really feel like you had, did you happen to visit a Lund's deli counter or a Kowalski's chicken wing buffet that day? No, but I will say, now that you mention it, for the first time in my life, I stopped at, my daughter said, let's get wings at Wingstop. I've never been to a Wingstop until the other day.
And?
Well, here's what bugged me about my Wingstop stop. I got a very modest, it was later, I don't like eating late, so I got like an order of 6. It was 6 wings, okay? And there were indeed 6 wings there. 5 flats and 1 drumming. Not going to work. I'm not someone who is anal about the fact it's got to be 50-50. If you got 3, it's got to be 3 of each. Can't be 5-1. You can't have 1 drummy and 5 flats. Not going to work for whatever that's worth.
Did you have the fries?
I did.
They're some of my favorite fries.
They're very good.
In existence.
They're very flavorful. Flavorful, I should say. I want to try next time. The wings that looked the most interesting to me were the lemon pepper wings. I'm not a big spicy wings guy. I don't need a lot of extra sauces and crap. But the lemon pepper wings looked pretty good. Great discussion. My wife's Aura runs her life, and she is obsessed with her sleep score. She started to blame my light snoring on her poor sleep score. I've learned to not even ask about said sleep score. This is from 952 guy. I have the Whoop. WHOOP. Is that must be one of these?
Is that a disease of some sort?
Well, that's what I thought first, but I think it must be either a ring or a watch or something. It's neat for the first year to see the data. After that, it's been worthless for me. It does tell me I drink too much, though, which I already knew. If you are a true health freak, they are a great tool. If you wear one because it's trendy, pretty much worthless. Dan, I was an early adapter of the Aura Ring a few years ago. I had the exact same experience. I felt like I had a great night's sleep, but my sleep score would tell me otherwise, so I'd go about my day feeling crabby and groggy. So I stopped wearing it. I recently read an article that perception of sleep can play a material role in your alertness and mood during the day, so there is something to it. That's from Total Richard guy.
Speaking of the Aura Ring, have you seen how much they are? They're like $400.
Yeah, well, I think you can get a little cheaper. They're not cheap. There's no question.
And then when you pay the $400, you got to pay a subscription.
Yeah, you got to. That's
to even
that's
have
the rub.
it work.
Yeah, that's true. And they're pretty heavy. I think.
Yeah,
they're reasonably heavy. My wife has an Aura Ring. This is from. I think this is Grant in Maple Grove. And after a night of what she felt like was great sleep, the app told her she'd had a horrible night's sleep. So she let it affect her the rest of the day. Well, if the app says I should be tired and grumpy, I guess I need to be. The opposite has also happened. She woke up almost hourly during the night, yet the next morning the app told her she'd had a almost perfect night's sleep. That's where I wonder whether they're just messing with us. And it's just chance. They just program stuff in that seems scientific or seems fancy. Dan, couldn't agree with you more in regards to the mental struggles with the rings. I find myself in a constant mental battle, questioning the data or questioning myself in regards to how I feel versus what the ring is telling me. Can't say my life has been made any better by wearing it. Might be time for a break. Had an Apple Watch and became obsessed with closing those rings. Stand up once an hour, walk, steps, go upstairs in competition with friends. It actually added to my stress. No more. That is indeed from Steven. Willow, Mark Rosen's Cat Guy's back. What a session. Or you can do better than that, pal. My Apple Watch definitely, I like my Apple Watch, but definitely controls me. I feel like I failed if I don't close all my rings. It most definitely helps me reach fitness goals. Well, early, that's where I think it helped me. But then I think, and then I got too consumed by it. And then you start figuring, okay, now I kind of know whether I'm recording it or not, how many steps, if I do the following, I'm going to be in that ballpark. So I've gone back to, I know it's quaint, I'm now just wearing watches again that just tell the time. That's all it does. It doesn't connect to anything. It's got the hands.
Yeah.
It's got the numbers, in this case, on it. This one glows in the dark, which is kind of gimmicky for me. But that's it. So I got nice watches. I might as well go back to just, wearing them and not being quite so concerned about the other stuff. I find the metrics on my smartwatch helpful if, for instance, I can wake up in the morning, be told my sleep was poor, and then look back for some sort of correlative reason why my sleep was poor. Then I see the positive accountability aspect of it. That's Peter from Concord. Yeah, well, maybe, for some people, I'm not here to say it doesn't work. I do think for some people it starts promisingly, and then eventually you feel like it's consuming you way too much, and it's almost dictating in a way that you've kind of, lost control of it. I think that's maybe part of it too.
I feel like it should be used almost like they tell you never Google your symptoms if you have a cough or anything, because it just tells you the worst possible thing. It's like you can use it, but it's not the end all be all of, this is it. And just because it said that I had a terrible night's sleep means that I did. It's just like, well, you can take that in as evidence, but it's not the whole picture.
That's reasonable. If you can stick to that, I think I don't trust myself anymore to be able to stick to that any longer. Maybe if I take a break and get back to it, I can. Every time my Apple Watch tells me it's time to stand, I want to tell it to mind its own business and stay out of my personal life. It does do that.
Yeah,
the Apple Watch, it does, and I think the Garmin one does a form of that too. And you're going, I'm okay. I already did my steps. I already did my miles. I'm fine. Maybe I got a reason I have to sit, or maybe I have a reason that I can't get up quite as quickly as being suggested. I don't know. My guess is our next guest does not have an Apple Watch, and then our next guest does not have a Garmin watch, and our next guest does not have an Oura ring either. I think Louis is, in that sense, too well adjusted. And I've seen some of the watches that he has too, and they're just watches. They're very nice watches. They're very pricey watches, but I don't think they do much else to tell time. But we'll ask him. We'll ask him if he even knows what an Oura ring is. And then we'll talk hockey. What's he heard on the trade front? Is he at all worried about the Wild's little 2-game mini slump here? Back in action tonight on the Fan. Wolves back in action tonight on the Timberwolves channel. All of that with Louis. Questions? Hit the Bradshaw and Bryant KFAN text line at 64686.
Well, she sneaks around the world from India to Carolina. She's a sticky-fingered filcher from Berlin down to Belize. She'll take you for a ride on a slow boat to China. Tell me, where in the world is
Nanne?
It's only South Korea, baby, honey.
Brought to you by our good friends and his good friends at Kemp's. Louis is back with us via the Connecticut Water Systems Hotline. Are you in Florida today?
Yes, I am. I'm here basically all month till the end of the month when I got to go do the Bruins game.
Bruins game, that's next. Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, 28th of March. Yeah.
Have you ever worn a smartwatch?
No.
No Apple Watch, no Garmin watch?
No. I like style a little better.
Have you ever worn an Oura ring?
No.
Okay. That was my prediction. I was going to be shocked if you had, because I was looking at a story, Louis, in the Wall Street Journal indicating the premise of the story was that there's something called sleep shaming going on now, where people are getting shamed if they, like leave their friends too early to go to sleep because they want their sleep. They get shamed if they don't sleep enough and they're not ready for work. And I said, kind of as a sidebar to that, but connected to it, is we got all these, because if you wear a smartwatch or an Oura Ring, it will evaluate how well it believes you slept on a given night. And in theory, that sounds good, but the problem with it is it can start to take over your life. In other words, you may think you had a great night's sleep, and then you check, let's see what the rating is and the score, and they give you a score like 42. And then you start getting annoyed. You go, wait a minute. And then you start stressing, well, maybe I didn't sleep as good as I did. So ultimately, all the technology, Louis, ends up controlling you rather than you controlling it. So I think you're smarter than the rest of us not getting near this nonsense.
Well, I can't be too smart because I didn't know what an Oura Ring was until 3 hours ago. And the only reason why I know, because I got my bill from the re-up the American Express.
Yes.
And I was going to cancel. I said, what good is this? Tell me what benefits I'm getting. And one of the things is, and you get an Oura Ring somehow along the way there. I said, what is an Oura Ring? I've never even heard of that. So I found out today what it is.
So you never took advantage
of
the opportunity. Yeah.
You know what, for me, and I'm sure there are other people like me, I go by the clock. If I know how many hours I got, then I tell myself whether I feel good or bad. If I got enough sleep, I feel good. If I didn't, then I must be tired.
Yeah, and I bet you that usually works for you.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
In my mind, it does.
And that's the key. The mind is so powerful. But I think I ended up like, it's almost at the end of it, it's like, well, no, you're telling me, sleep rating, poor. And I'm devastated. I'm going, no, I felt it was better than that. And then you start pressing. Well, now, what if I go back to bed and it's like, well, now I'm all anxious. What if I have another bad score? Well, now, you know what I'm doing? I'm just going to take the watch off because I don't want to be evaluated by this stupid watch.
That's actually accurate. If you start thinking about what the watch says, that's the way you're going to start feeling.
Yes,
it's
exactly
it's like a water drop test. Keeping the guy in the forehead with a drop of water. Pretty soon you're going to convince him to talk.
Well, I think you're on the right track. And I mentioned, I said, that you, I think, like attractive watches a little bit too much and the style of them. By the way, for the record, Russo was listening. Here's the text he sent. Louis wears a fake Rolex and he's proud of it. Tell him I said that.
I wear a lot of. I have 34 fake ones, so I'm very proud of it.
Yes,
they're not only Rolex. I love watches, but I'm not going to pay. I think exorbitant price.
Even you have your limits. Yeah. Right.
So I got this guy in Detroit that I don't know where he gets his watches, but he got them for everybody. Then I ran into him, and if I see something I like, I send him a picture. He sends me to watch, and that's
all you ask.
Pay a few $100s instead of $30,000.
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, it's even.
And they look just as good. And you want to know what? They work.
That's the key.
Some of them are 10 years old.
Yeah.
And I tell her, I can't believe how many people stop me or see me in a plane, sit beside me, and they I love that watch. What is it? I say Patek Philippe. That's $30,000-$40,000. I said, no, this one's $300. I don't mind telling them that.
Yeah, no.
I actually. Funny story. My wife and I went to a wine dinner at the Palm Beach Yacht Club, which is very prestigious, and there was just 12 couples in there. It sold out 12 couples, and they had names in front of us, and we're having different wines and different foods, and this lady across from me sees my name, and she's Lou. Do you mind if I see your watch? And I gave her my watch, and she said, she put it to her chest and said, this is the most beautiful watch I've ever seen. It's just gorgeous. And she handed it back to me. I said, well, for $300, I can get you one, too. And my wife was horrified. She said, imagine what they think, these people, this upper crust, that you got a $300 watch. I said, listen, they just got a lot of money, and now at least they're going to remember it. They said, do you remember that jerk that told me his watch only got $300? I said, otherwise they would have never remembered it.
That's it. That's too good. That's very, very, very true. All right, let's play the 0 to 10 game. The trade deadline, 2 p.m. Central Friday, NHL trade deadline. So 0 to 10, 0 obviously being no chance, 10 being a deadlock certainty. Give me a number that you would attach to the Wild making what most of us would, call or classify as a really significant trade based on people you talk to, based on the market, based on Wild availability. What number do you attach with on 0 to 10 that the Wild will make that kind of a deal before the deadline?
Well, I didn't talk to anybody about their chances, and I believe it's 4 at the most.
Okay.
And I say that because, again, I'm getting to the cost. Has he got enough to pay? Because Drury, for instance, he knows how badly Billy wants Trocheck, and there are going to be other teams that want him. And I think, I really think that, you put him and Thomas, there's not that many centermen that are being talked about that are going to get moved. And I have to think with the number of teams that are looking to improve that position, I think that we're talking significant trades. We're not talking Fabry. I like the fact that they added Fabry, but that was waiver. I'm talking a significant, one of the significant names. I don't know that the other general managers that he's dealing with are going to be willing to take what he wants to offer unless one of those teams is really high in Stramel. And I think that could be the key, is a big centerman that's a young player and a future draft choice. To me, that's the only package he's got to deal. And I don't know, what other teams think of Stramel or what the Wild think of Stramel. Do they think he's going to be a big key player? Because if he is, then you got to figure 2 years he should be significant in your lineup if that's what they feel, and that's not a long time to wait. So that's and by the way, I think Trocheck might be the only guy that's coming in that's got a 3-year contract.
Yeah.
So you don't mind paying for that, but you don't want to, again, how far are you going to pay out, and will Drury take that with the Rangers?
All right, how much are you willing to give up for Trocheck?
Well, I'd be willing to give up the first round pick. They've already given up the next 2. I'd give up the next one too, because that's 3 years down the line, and hopefully along the way you're going to be able to get some free agents that can fill the gap that pick might get, or along the way you might trade some of your older veterans and get that back. So that one doesn't bother me, but I don't really know how good Stramel's going to be. Or do you want to give it the goaltender, So that's the 2 key pieces you got.
Would you be willing to give up the goaltender for him, or is that too much for Trocheck?
I would, but the Rangers don't need it. They got the best goalie in the league, one of the best in the league. Yeah, right. So they're not going to deal for a goalie. See, I'm not so certain. If I was the Rangers, I'd be asking for Hartman and that future first round. And I don't believe in filling the hole by creating a hole. I really like the way Hartman plays in the playoffs. I like the versatility he's got between center and wing. I like the competitiveness he displays all the time, and especially when you got guys like Foligno hurt now. He plays with an edge, and the Wild don't have a lot of guys that play with an edge up front. And people, sometimes think the bad thing, they think about him taking penalties. I think the other way along. Montreal, many times they had the most penalties in the league when they'd win the championship, because their guys weren't afraid to play with an edge. And killing penalties is part of the game. You got to kill penalties. Philadelphia always play with an edge. And I think that those kind of guys, you got to get a little more. We just tend to forget the low part of the bar is him getting 15 goals. He's had over 20 a couple of years. And, he filled in a power play, and I just think that if I was Drury, I'd be asking for Hartman in the first round.
A lot of good text coming in. If you have questions for Luigi or observations you want to run by him, 64686 continues to be the Bradshaw and Bryant KFAN text line. Louis, brought to you by Kemp's. One texter, this is Chris, Am I crazy to be concerned about the Wild's goaltending in the playoffs? They just seem to be okay lately after a red hot start. What do you think?
That's a good question, and I go through that in my mind the last couple of weeks, and I like the way Gus rebounded right before the Olympics. He had a nice stretch in there, and I'm hoping that that's going to come back. Otherwise, I might be a little concerned, but I'm hoping for the best. I think that he might be having a soft spot right now, and he's going to be the goaltender they're going to go with the most. And so I think he's going to rebound back, and I feel that he's got a lot of good hockey left in him.
We were talking, how did it come up yesterday? Garzi and I were talking about Quinn Hughes. I don't remember all the context. And it's obviously some leftover stuff from the Olympics. And the stat I saw, and you may have known it, was that at the time of the deal, at the time they acquired him, the Wild were in the bottom third in scoring in the league. And since the trade, nobody has scored more goals in the NHL, at least until the last game or two. I don't know if that had any impact on what took place. I mean, is there ever been a better, more demonstrable, piece of evidence about what one player can mean beyond just, whatever statistics you talk about individually, the effect that a player can have into so many parts of a team's game?
No, that tells it all. In fact, look at how the scoring from the defenseman has increased since he's been there too. It's right across the board, and the time that the puck's on his stick, he almost was like a minute more than anybody else in the league, and that just goes to tell you when you're controlling the puck, obviously you got a better chance to score goals. So the longer you have it, the more opportunities you got, and those have transferred into goals, and that's why the Wild made such a big jump. And this kid has been phenomenal. And I have to tell you, the last game was the first game because the whirlwind he's been on and how tired he must be between the hockey and the travel and then also the travel with these personal appearances was the last game that I can recall him maybe getting checked in a situation where he normally would spin out. Right. And it happened twice. And that, to me, that's just a tired guy, and that's gonna be gone with a good night's sleep after this game tonight. He gets back in his schedule; it's going to be gone. But that little difference in his ability to make things happen, get the puck up, transition the team back into offense from defense, and get it out of the zone quickly. It's been a home run. The guy's. He's been phenomenal. I just get a kick out of watching him because it's like funny and comical how many times people go to check him and they can't get him. They all of a sudden you think they got him boxed in and he's gone, and it just something that when you see the ability and agility of a guy like that, you really have to sit back and enjoy it. It makes you smile.
Russo, speaking of Russo, he has a great piece out regarding, so it's kind of a really good behind-the-scenes piece regarding Hillary Knight, Jack and Quinn Hughes, The Tonight Show, and then, of course, Jack and Quinn were at SNL as well, and some good stuff with Fallon. And what's interesting to me is it sounds like, based on the story, that even with the short return time right after the Olympics to the season resuming, that the Guerin advice was get out there and enjoy this. If you got opportunities like this to be on late night, revel in this. This is a once in a lifetime kind of a situation. He seemed to be encouraging his player certainly, and all of them actually to sort of play this thing out. And again, I don't know if that ended up hurting him a little bit in terms of, his rest pattern to get back into the groove. But I got to believe, again, the benefit to the National Hockey League, incalculable, right? On all this publicity that a sport that doesn't always get that kind of late night publicity, how it reaches the more casual hockey fan.
I'm happy that Billy did that because it is such a unique time, a unique period. and you could certainly sacrifice a little as the guy running the team or even the team itself by letting the players have this opportunity and really giving the publicity, as you said, to the country about hockey and these individuals. They were great to watch, and they got looser on Jimmy Fallon than they were on Saturday Night Live. But I thought it was a great bit, and I was really happy that they were able to do it. I don't know how they managed it. They must have flown in private because he was going back and forth. I hope he's not like me. He can sleep on a plane because he was on the go all the time. But that was tremendous, not only for the Wild, but as you said, for the National Hockey League, and the fans loved it. It's something that you have to appreciate that, because you take Austin Matthews. Here he is, 10 years. He's got to be about 10 years, 9 or 10 years. I think it's 10 years with the Leafs. And last night I was watching that game too. But when he came back from the Olympics, and he's playing in Toronto, and they introduced him as the Olympic gold medal winner, and half the crowd booed him in Toronto.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
And I was glad to hear a couple of announcers say that, in between periods, he's gone. Why would he want to stay around in that? And Brady Tkachuk got the same in Ottawa, and so now there's talk that that he could be going at the deadline too, maybe for Robertson in Dallas, a flip there. But I'll tell you, I can't believe his fans would be booing him.
Let me ask you about what we've seen from the team. Well, it started brilliantly, obviously, with the game in Colorado, and then obviously not so good since, for sure. What have you seen the 3 games since the break, the return of the teams?
Space, and sometimes I really think it's timing, and it affects different people, different players, and I really, when you look at the last 2 games. It wasn't the way the Wild were playing. First of all, you got Foligno out of the lineup, so some of your and he leads by example as far as the contact and the intensity, and you're missing that. Then you're giving up. It was almost like getting to pond hockey where there's look at the space between the defensemen and the forwards as teams coming into their zone or going up ice. The gaps were way too big between the forwards and the defensemen. There's too much room to operate for these teams. And, the goalies were okay, but not really overly sharp. And I think the passing was not good. And usually when those passes are snapped and by everybody, when they're moving and they're flying and they're accurate, you make a pass and it's on the tape and they're going with speed. They're tough to check.
What is the rest of the season here? What matters? What do you need to see? What's the best way for this team to give itself the best chance to finally get out of the first round and do much more than that? Because I think the expectations now, Louis, are, okay, we despite the lack of playoff equity, we want to make a run this season. That doesn't necessarily mean you win the whole thing, but a run that goes beyond a single series. So what are you going to be, what do they need to be paying attention to prepare?
Well, right now, it's just what I was talking about. They got to get their game back to the kind of checking and intensity that they had before. And I have to tell you, they really got a tough 3 games coming up. That's, let's face it, that's really going to be tough. I mean, they're playing 3 top teams. I think they got the Lightning, and it's Vegas, and then Colorado, something like that. But they're 3 of the top teams in the league. And I want to see them come out of that with, if they can come out of it with 500, I'm going to be feeling better, because that means they're getting back into their game. And then go from there, because by then I think that they'll be back in rhythm. I really think they're just out of rhythm right now a little bit, and that's because of the break. That's the one thing that was bothered me about the All-Star game break and the Olympic break, and that it affects teams differently, and you always hope that it's not going to affect your team when they go into a break playing so well as the Wild were. and that's one thing that you want to get right back to, and I feel good about them if they stay healthy, because they will get Brodin back. That's why he didn't go to the Olympics.
Yeah.
So their defense is going to be set. If Gus gets sharp like he was before, then it's, that's why the Olympics were won by the U.S. was goaltending and defense. And they do have enough up front. I mean, when you start talking about the Wild forwards, you're talking about superlative players when you talk about Kaprizov, Bolsey, and then you got Eriksson Ek up front. I mean, you got guys